Welcome to English Easy Hub. Join us as we ignite the flames of your English learning journey together.
Please subscribe to watch and embark on your English learning journey. Don't miss out on the exciting content. In this dialogue, Simon approaches his teacher seeking advice on how to make his English speech sound smoother and more natural. While Simon has worked on grammar and vocabulary, he feels his speech lacks the fluidity of native speakers. The conversation explores advanced techniques like shadowing, pronunciation refinement, and the use of connected speech. It also delves into building confidence through practice and understanding cultural nuances that influence language. The teacher provides practical advice on daily habits, pronunciation, intonation, and strategies for thinking in English, helping Simon focus on real-world fluency rather than just linguistic perfection.
Hi, teacher. I've been working on improving my English, but I feel like my sentences sometimes sound awkward or forced. How can I make my speech smoother, more natural, like it just flows?
That's a great question, Simon. One of the key things to focus on when you want to speak English more smoothly is connected speech. English speakers tend to link their words together, often dropping sounds or blending them. For example, what do you want to do? Can sound like what I want to do. It's important to practice how native speakers actually speak, not just textbook English. Have you tried shadowing?
Shadowing. I've heard about it but never really tried it. How exactly should I go about it? And why do you think it's so effective?
Shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they say as quickly as possible, imitating their rhythm, intonation, and even the little pauses they take. This technique helps train your brain and mouth to produce the patterns of spoken English. The beauty of shadowing is that it forces you to break out of your normal speech habits and adopt more natural patterns. You can start with short phrases, then work your way up to longer sentences and conversations. You could try using podcasts or even movie dialogues.
Interesting. I've always thought practicing grammar and vocabulary was the key, but this sounds more like training my ears and mouth to work together. How can I tell if I'm improving though? Sometimes I feel like I'm not making progress at all.
It's common to feel like you're not progressing, especially when you're focused on something as nuanced as fluency. A good way to measure improvement is by recording yourself. Pick a short script or a podcast clip you like, record yourself shadowing it today, and then do the same thing after 2 weeks of practice. Compare the two. You'll likely notice that your second recording sounds more natural. Also, if you're able to follow along with faster speakers over time, that's another great sign.
That makes sense. I'll definitely start recording myself. Another thing I'm curious about is pronunciation. I sometimes struggle with certain sounds, like the TH sound in think or the R sound. Are there any tricks for mastering tricky sounds like these?
Pronunciation is another crucial aspect of smooth English. For the TH sound, it's all about where your tongue is placed. It should be between your teeth, not behind them. Try exaggerating the motion at first, even if it feels awkward. It'll help you get the placement right. As for the R sound, it's produced with the tongue pulled back slightly in the mouth. One technique is to start by saying E as in C, then slowly shift to R. This helps you feel the tongue's movement. Of course, consistency is key, so work on these sounds regularly.
I think I'd been placing my tongue behind my teeth, which explains why my TH sounds are off. I'll practice exaggerating it. Speaking of consistent practice, do you recommend any daily habits or routines to keep improving?
Yes, consistency is everything when it comes to language learning. One habit I'd recommend is creating a daily English hour where you focus solely on English. During this hour, you could shadow, read aloud, listen to English podcasts, or even have conversations with language exchange partners. Another thing that often gets overlooked is thinking in English. Try to make it a habit to narrate your day or even solve simple problems in your head in English. This will reinforce your fluency over time.
Thinking in English, that's a new one. I usually translate in my head from my native language, which definitely slows me down. But I imagine it's hard to think directly in English when I'm not yet fluent. How do I push myself to do that?
Translating in your head is totally normal for learners at first, but it's one of the biggest barriers to fluency. Start small by thinking in English about simple, everyday things. For example, when you wake up, try narrating your morning routine in English. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm getting dressed. Over time, you can start thinking in more complex sentences and even opinions. The key is to not overthink it. Even if you don't know the perfect word or grammar, just let your thoughts flow in English. It'll get easier the more you practice.
I love that. I can see how thinking in English will help me stop relying on translation. One last question. Sometimes I feel nervous about making mistakes when I speak. How can I overcome that fear and be more confident?
That's a very common challenge, Simon. The fear of making mistakes can hold back even the best learners. But here's the truth. Mistakes are a part of the learning process. Every time you make one, it's an opportunity to improve. Focus on communication, not perfection. Native speakers don't expect you to be flawless. They're usually impressed when you're trying. A great way to boost confidence is by practicing in low-pressure environments first, like with language partners or even by talking to yourself. The more you practice, the more natural and confident you'll feel.
That's really encouraging. Thank you. I'm going to start shadowing, recording myself, thinking in English, and just going for it without worrying too much about mistakes. I appreciate all the tips.
You're on the right track, Simon. Keep practicing, and don't be afraid to push yourself out of your comfort zone. You'll be amazed at how much progress you can make over time. Good luck, and enjoy the journey.
Thank you for the encouragement. I do have another thought. What about intonation and stress? I've noticed that native speakers don't just use words, but also a kind of melody when they talk. My sentences often sound flat in comparison. How can I work on this?
You're absolutely right, Simon. Intonation and stress are a huge part of making your speech sound natural. English has a natural rhythm, where certain words and syllables are stressed and others are unstressed. Native speakers vary their pitch and tone depending on what they're trying to communicate emotionally or contextually. For example, rising intonation at the end of a sentence often indicates a question, while falling intonation signals certainty or finality. One exercise you can try is to record native speakers from TV shows or podcasts and really pay attention to how they rise and fall in their speech. Then mimic it.
I see, so it's not just about what I'm saying, but how I'm saying it. Are there any specific types of content you recommend for practicing intonation, like news broadcasts or dramas? And how much does context, like formal versus casual speech, influence this?
Great question. Context definitely affects intonation. In formal speech, like news broadcasts, the tone is often more measured and neutral, while in casual conversation, you'll hear more expressive variations in pitch. Dramas and sitcoms are excellent for picking up the emotional range of intonation, while TED Talks or interviews might be good for more structured and thoughtful speech patterns. Try to diversify your listening practice. For instance, in casual speech, notice how people tend to stress key words while letting less important ones blend into the background. In contrast, formal speech may emphasize clarity and consistency in tone.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess in casual conversation, it's more about emotion and connection, while formal speech is about precision and clarity. I've noticed that in conversation, some words seem to be swallowed or almost skipped over. Is that part of connected speech too? Should I be doing that as well?
Exactly, Simon. That's part of what we call reduction. In connected speech, less important words like articles and the prepositions in on, at, or auxiliary verbs is or have often get reduced or blended into the surrounding words. For example, I'm going to becomes I'm gonna, or did you becomes did ya. Native speakers do this unconsciously because it allows speech to flow more smoothly. You don't necessarily need to mimic it perfectly, but understanding it will help you follow conversations better and sound more natural when you speak.
So it's like a balancing act, right? Knowing when to reduce words and when to emphasize the important ones. It feels like mastering a kind of music, with rhythm and flow. Do you think listening to music or even poetry could help me get better at this?
Absolutely. Music and poetry are fantastic tools for improving your sense of rhythm and flow in a language. In fact, poetry often exaggerates intonation and stress, which can help you really grasp how English moves. Songs, especially with lyrics you can understand, teach you both informal speech patterns and reductions. And since lyrics often repeat, they give you a chance to internalize the way English sounds in a fun way. Also, music sticks in your memory longer, which reinforces patterns subconsciously. If you listen to songs with clear lyrics and try singing along, you'll naturally pick up on the rhythm and connected speech.
I love that idea. I'll try listening to more English songs and reading along with the lyrics. One thing that still puzzles me, though, is how to maintain fluency when I encounter words I'm not familiar with. Sometimes I pause too long when I'm searching for the right word, and it breaks my flow. How can I handle that better?
That's a common struggle, even for advanced learners. The key here is to learn to keep going even if you don't have the perfect word in the moment. One strategy is to use fillers like or, which can give you a second to think without completely stopping. Another strategy is paraphrasing. If you can't remember a specific word, quickly describe it or use a simpler synonym. The important thing is to maintain the flow of conversation. Native speakers do this all the time without even realizing it. And with practice, you'll find that your brain gets faster at finding the right words.
That's really helpful, actually. I've always thought fillers made me sound less fluent, but if native speakers use them too, I guess it's more about maintaining the rhythm. Do you think practicing improvisation, like in debates or spontaneous speaking tasks, could help with this?
Yes, improvisation exercises are excellent for developing fluency. They force you to think on your feet and adapt quickly, which builds confidence in speaking without hesitation. Debates, or even simple storytelling exercises can train your brain to form sentences more quickly and handle unexpected situations, like forgetting a word. Another great practice is something called free speaking, where you set a timer for 1 to 2 minutes and talk continuously on a random topic without stopping. The goal isn't perfection, but to get used to expressing your thoughts as they come. Over time, this will reduce your pauses and make you more fluid.
That's good to know. I guess I'll focus on understanding different accents first before deciding if I want to adopt one. I really appreciate all of your advice, teacher. It's given me a lot to think about and practice. I feel much more confident now about how to approach fluency.
I'm so glad to hear that, Simon. Remember, fluency is a journey, not a destination. Keep experimenting with different techniques, stay consistent, and most importantly, enjoy the process. You're already on the right path, and with your dedication, I'm sure you'll make great strides. Don't hesitate to come back if you need more guidance. Best of luck!
Thank you so much. I'll keep practicing and take everything you've said to heart. Looking forward to speaking even more smoothly soon.
That's the spirit, Simon. Remember, small daily efforts will add up to big improvements over time. Keep pushing yourself, and before you know it, your English will feel as natural as your native language.
This conversation highlights the importance of natural fluency over textbook accuracy. Key techniques like shadowing, working on connected speech, and thinking in English are essential for making speech flow more smoothly. Confidence plays a major role, and learners must embrace mistakes as part of the process. Cultural understanding like idioms, reductions, and intonation helps learners sound more authentic. The teacher's advice encourages Simon to focus on communication and rhythm rather than perfection, ensuring that consistent practice will lead to continuous improvement. The dialogue emphasizes that fluency is a gradual journey, driven by curiosity and persistence, with language skills developing naturally over time.
Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share to keep the English learning journey alive.